Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I'm sitting down with Vivek Bhaskaran, who is the founder and CEO of QuestionPro. And I'm so excited to be jumping into this here. So, sir, thank you so much for taking the time to be here, chat a little bit about this crazy journey of entrepreneurship and the various ups and downs that come along with it. So first off, thank you for taking some time. Why don't we just start with a little bit of background? Give us kind of the 10,000-foot view of who you are and some of the things that you've accomplished on this storied entrepreneurial career that you've been on.
Storied entrepreneurial career. I'm not sure about that, but yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm super excited to be here. Really quickly, originally I'm from India. I left India when I was 18. I went to Russia for 2 years. Then I came to the States to study computer science. I transferred to a Mormon school in Utah called Brigham Young University. Finished off my undergrad there. Then went to Seattle. Did a couple of years of consulting work. Then in 2005, I started my own company. They've been running it since then. I mean, it's one of those things like entrepreneurship. Like, once you kind of, it's like a drug. Once you get into it, you kind of can't get out of it, really, right? So, I've done just kind of from a professional perspective, I started QuestionPro back in 2005, ran for about 5 years. Then I kind of like took a back seat and I kind of did a couple other startups. Most of them failed, but one of them succeeded. It was a company called IdeaScale. Then in 2015, I came back to run QuestionPro actually, and then I've been running it since then for the last, I guess, 7, 8 years. And from a kind of geographic perspective, I lived in Seattle. Then moved down to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Then I moved to Austin in 2020. I've been in Austin since then. So it's kind of like that's been my kind of physical kind of like India, Russia, Provo, Seattle, Bay Area, and now Austin, I guess. So
Dang, that's like all over the place. I love it. I want to talk a little bit about this, this journey of, starting the business back in 2005, having the opportunity to kind of step away from it, do a few other things, making the choice to come back. Maybe let's just start with ran it for, what'd you say, about 5 years or so, and
5 years. Yeah.
decide to kind of take that back seat and move into additional things. What was the catalyst for that? Why make that choice, or what allowed you to make that choice and being able to kind of step away from running the business?
Yeah, so it's a good point. I mean, after 5 years, I was feeling like I needed to do something different. Realistically, I mean, it's kind of like natural, like the 7 year itch or whatever it is, people call it, really, right? So and I had a fortunate kind of like mechanism. We were kind of spinning out a separate company out of QuestionPro, and then another friend of mine said like, "Look, I would love to run QuestionPro." Really, like he kind of said like, and then I was like, "I want to do a couple of new things." Typically, the idea is like you sell the company, then you do another thing. That's kind of at least in tech, that's kind of the standard kind of operating procedure. But we were super profitable, and we were kind of growing and healthy, and so like, we don't want to really sell the company, and I had a very trusted friend. He's like, yeah, I would love to run it, and it's like, and I want to do something new. And I'm like, okay, cool, it works out. So you come in and run this thing while I go do. I have 2 or 3 new projects that I've kind of the back of my mind that I wanted to do. Let me go do that. And so that's how we kind of like do a little shuffle, I guess, to some extent. And I was on the board and I was helping him kind of. So it was a very kind of, it worked out really well for all of us, right? And I got to do some more entrepreneurial stuff. I kind of started to invest in companies and had 2 or 3 new ideas that I wanted to pursue, and without selling the company, right? And more, so I was able to do that simply because I just stumbled into a good friend of mine who's equally smart as I was. So I was like, dude, you could run this thing as well as I could. Simple, and and so we did the swap. And he wanted to get into entrepreneurship, but he didn't want to get it like at the ground floor, right? He wanted to get like, look, I want to do something, but I really kind of, I want to have something that's already kind of built. We had already built it to about $5 million at the time, so it's like, okay, I can take this thing from 5 to 10. I can, so that worked out really well for both of us. That's how we did it at the time.
That's fantastic. So then in that interim before you came back, you've got somebody else running the business, they're in that kind of CEO role.
Yep.
You take the ability to be on the board and kind of still have some guidance and structure, I imagine, with where
Yep.
the business direction is going. For those that haven't experienced kind of that level within their entrepreneurial journey so far, maybe kind of talk through what that's like when you take that shift away from being kind of in it day to day, running it, to now I'm guiding, I'm on
Yep.
the board side of things. Talk through that a little bit and kind of give us some context of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's gonna, there's pros and cons. Everything, like everything in life, there are like things that you learn, and then things that are awesome, right? The things that I'll talk about, the things that are awesome is like, look, now you step back, and again, since this gentleman was, a trusted friend of mine, I knew he was gonna do a good job. I mean, in terms of he knew a lot of people, so the transition was super easy, smooth. Um, and also it opened up, it's like gave me a ton of time to do what I want, the new ideas, right? It says you really cannot do like justice if you want to start up a new idea. It's just the grind. The grind is like you gotta work on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so and also it gave all the other guys in the company also a different taste of a different kind of leadership. Look, everybody comes in, and no two human beings are exactly the same, right? So you have one kind of CEO, the other CEO is going to be different. He was more methodical, structured, process oriented, and I was a little bit more of a cowboy, if you will, right? And so that was good for the company. Frankly, the company needed a little bit more structure, and I was like, okay, look, the company needs structure, and I'm not the best person to do it right now. So Kodo, right? Kodo is the name of the gentleman, and he can do a much better job and doing this. So he did that, and so that was kind of that's worked out really really well. I'll tell you there are certain downsides also. Kind of the things that I learned through the process is, look, I was in the board, so he knew that it was my money, my company that he was running effectively. So for the most part, right? In terms of risk appetite, look, most companies scale because of risk. Really, like people have to take risks. Right? That's how you scale. Yes, you need process systems and all that stuff, but somebody's got to take a bet on things. Otherwise, things are not going to move. And he was like, not necessarily, I had not equipped him kind of say like, look, take big risk. And I used to tell him about it, but then intrinsically he was like, dude, I cannot fuck this one up, right? He was kind of he had that attitude, right? And rightly so, like, and he knew me personally. I was not some kind of, no name esoteric VC slash some kind of abstract entity, right? Some private equity
Hmm.
firm. I was like, he knew me, we had a personal relationship. So, and he knew my net worth was tied to the company. So he's like, he was very careful about the kind of bets he took, and rightly so from his viewpoint, right? So he's like,
Hmm.
so that was kind of, I think so. So the growth actually didn't come out as much as I thought it would. So the growth kind of plateaued out a little bit. And so that was a lesson learned for me, right? Okay, look, when you hand over something, even though you can say like, hey, do it, it's still like, it registers into people's heads, and so they were, they will. And in fact, I would do the same thing if I was on his side, right? Like, look, if I took over your company and I know you really well, I know you, I know your family, I know your kids, I know everybody. I can't, I know, I don't want to fuck this one up, right? So that's the, and so that's kind of the reason. That's one of the things that I mean, those are the kind of the lessons learned for me.
Yeah. Was that ultimately what brought you back to running it full time at this point, or
Pretty
were there
much,
other
yeah.
catalysts that
Yeah,
that
that and
popped
a
up?
couple other catalysts. Yeah, that and the fact that I failed in a couple of those startups. So you got it. So you try a bunch of new things, and you've done it a few times, but I mean, the entrepreneurship, failure is part of the equation, realistically, right? And yeah, I mean, and the market was taken off for this company, for QuestionPro also. So then, in fact, he's my CEO. He's still with me, by the way. So I came back and said like, hey man, I want to run the company again. He's like, then come over, and like we can do it together. And so it was kind of like a slightly awkward conversation, like, hey, let's step back, and I gotta, come back. But again, he's a good friend of mine. He's a mature guy. He's not, he's like, look, if you want to crush this thing, you want to do something big. So let's just, why don't you come back, and I'll support you. And he supported me even to today. He's my right hand guy in the company. He's like almost like a co-founder. He's not technically a co-founder, but really, see, at this point, he cannot behaves like a co-founder for the most part. And yeah, so that was the catalyst to come back, and then we've kind of grown the company from, we came back, it was 6.5, $7 million, and we are $30 million right now. So we've kind of done a pretty good, we've done a kind of good job in terms of at least kind of driving those things. So that's the journey.
That's fantastic. That's to have someone like that, at your side that's willing to, work and run the business in your stead for a while and then still be a part of it and want to help you continue to grow and build it and work alongside you as you choose to come back. It's a phenomenal thing that I don't think is always found. I'm curious, as you kind of stepped back into the CEO role and starting to run the business again, um, And knowing that you had gone through some things that we can get into here in a second on things that didn't go well and lessons maybe you learned along the way, is there anything that you did differently or are doing differently today with the business to help it continue to grow versus that first 5 years in building?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we did to hustle from like $0 to like $3, $4 million is completely different. What we need to do to go from like, 5, $7 million to 30 million bucks. And our goal is to get to 100 million bucks, right? So it's gonna, it's, I mean, obviously the target is a never ending target. I would argue like, hey, wherever you are, you want to grow it bigger. At least that's how I am. So yeah, the kind of like what we've kind of started thinking about is like, given where we are, where we need to go, how do we need to operate, right? That's kind of like, that's the big kind of shift in mentality. That is difficult, but you have to do it. In my mind, that's what helped us grow. Like, for example, we went out and acquired a company. When you're smaller, you don't even think about acquisitions. You think
Mm.
about like, let's just grow the thing, right? And now we are thinking like, we have some cash, you can buy the companies, we can buy somebody, right? It has its own sort of challenges, man. No shit. Right? I mean, it's just got integration and this and that, and all kinds of stuff, deal making and all that stuff. So, but again, to me, it's like it's a new challenge, right? I'm always excited, and a lot of people say like, look, you've been doing this for many years, yeah, but my role is completely different right now. What I did when I was, I'm still the CEO either way, but a CEO of a $3 million company operates completely different than a $10 million company,
Hmm.
$30 million, $100 million company. Like all of, you still, and it's from my perspective it's like professional maturity, right? I was like, okay, look, how am I? No, look, nobody's gonna give me a job, probably. Like, I'm just, I swear too much. I say what I feel like saying. I don't give a shit. So I figured. I told my wife, like, dude, there's nobody's gonna give me a job to run a company this size. So this is my only shot. So I might as well do it. And so yeah. I mean, going back to your point, I mean, yes, there are different things. You gotta like internally reshift. And I have a kind of internal process that I use, which is to say, like, look, if I was fired today and I was hired tomorrow to do the same job in the same company, what would you do? Right? If you kind of put that frame of reference, right? So you
Hmm.
don't have the baggage of all the conversations you've had, the baggage of all the people you've hired, baggage of the decisions you made, right? You come in and say, like, look, this is a $30 million company, you got to get it to 100 million bucks. What are you gonna do? Right? And that gives you a fresh sense of like rethinking process, right? You say, like, all right, cool, I get it. So we are here, we gotta go there. It doesn't matter what we did yesterday. It doesn't matter what yeah, we hired this guy, we fired this guy, we said this, we said that, and that's why, like, if you think about it, a lot of private equity companies are pretty successful in doing this because they come in with a fresh set of eyes. They don't have all the baggage, and so we've done that. I wouldn't say I would love to do that every year, but I think every couple of years, right, you kind of have the reset conversation with a lot of people internally and externally and how you think, how you behave, and that's what helps you grow. So that's been my lesson learned as we've kind of gone through this journey.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love it, and it brings up kind of an important thing I'm curious about, and that's how do you continue to stay focused on becoming the CEO that can run a 30, 40, $50 million organization, knowing that exactly like you said, that the CEO that runs a $3 million business is very different than the one that has to run a $10 million business and so forth. And as you continue to grow on that journey, what types of things are you doing? Are you surrounding yourself with folks that are 10 times ahead of you and learning from them, but what are some top lessons from your experience that help you continue to grow into the type of CEO you need to be for the future of the company?
Earlier on, if you think about it, any company when you are like in the sub $1 million or like couple of $1 million range, it's like you're the hustler, right? You're sweeping the floors and doing everything that's needed, right? Like kind of like, but then like at this point, you still need to hustle, but I am hustling like amazing people, getting them into the company, right? That's we need folks who are like absolutely the best in each of these functions, and my only job is to go hire and recruit talent realistically. And I cannot close a deal. I mean, I love sales. I love to close deals, but in order to go from where we are to where we need to go, closing deals not my job. Really, it's really not the job. At this point, my job is to make sure I build a team that can close deals realistically. So that's kind of where I am at this point. That's what I believe that my job is, to kind of build the team and and inspire the team. So So I think that that's a different kind of job, right? If you think about it, like, that's completely
Mhm.
different than kind of like, look, you're at, $5 million, $3 million, or even less than that. And you just have to survive at that point. You're just trying to close deals and just, put food on the table. And so I think, what I've done is like really looked at, and as you get bigger, you actually get, obviously have more money, which means you can hire amazing talent. And the amazing talent is, I listen to them. Simply put, I mean, most of these guys have worked at, Glassdoor and Career Builder and all the Indeed and all these guys, and they've been there. They've seen companies grow, and they are again. It's a matter of hugely. It's a matter of trust. I trust those guys to help me, kind of there, and we've got a great kind of management team. They. I'm very transparent with them, and they're transparent with me, and so on and so forth. So that's worked out really well. And obviously, as you scale, initially you don't think that you can hire these guys. That's the other lesson. Like all these, when you're smaller, you're like, dude, these guys, first of all, cost a lot of money, well, rightly so.
Mhm.
But then they also come in and they act like adults. They're not. You don't have you can say like, hey, here's the problem. They're like, yeah, we'll solve it. Don't worry about it. We are on top of it. Don't worry. So that's also very refreshing, right? So as an entrepreneur, like, look, you're used to solving nearly 97% of the problems, but now today you're like, dude, no, we have adults in the room that are out there to solve problems, and they can solve it, and you just leave it up to them. And my job is really to kind of make sure that surround yourself with amazing people that are pushing me. The way I think about it is kind of
Mhm.
the analogy that I drive is like you're in the plane, but you need like engine thrusters, right? The floor. If you have amazing engines, the plane's gonna fly, and you're just hanging out in the cockpit. All right, fine, but the engines are doing all the work, really, right? So if you can find amazing people who can actually do that, then plane's gonna fly.
So how do you make that shift? How do you go from, the entrepreneur that is one of the smartest on the team to I now need to hire people that are way ahead of me for each of these individualized roles because that's the only way that the business is going to grow. How do you make that shift mentally? Or what advice would you give to somebody who's not quite there yet, but they're on the cusp of it and that's like a blocking point for them?
Mhm.
How would you help them kind of overcome that obstacle and start to be comfortable with hiring better people that will continue to allow them to actually grow the business?
I'll give you like for me, obviously give you my personal kind of anecdotal kind of evidence. Eric Coda, who was my CEO, who's the guy that we've talked about a little bit. So he kind of like when I came back, he basically said, "Look, dude, I'll work with you, but don't make me work with a bunch of fucking idiots." That's it. Don't matter. I don't care how much you fucking pay me, but don't make me work with a bunch of fucking idiots. I'm like, all right, that's a fair point. All right, you know. So which means we gotta hire people like collectively smarter than us, simply put, right? That's it. So I made that a kind of like a transition point, right? It's like, look, we are going to hire people who are, who've been there, done that, smarter than us, who inspire us as much as we inspire them, realistically, right? So that has been a kind of like a fundamental principle, right? Like if I meet somebody, and I've been fairly opportunistic about, like, I met people in my life that I'm really like, I know these guys are amazing. This guy's an amazing guy, right? And I don't even have a role for him, right? So I create a role for him, really, right? Like, dude, I just need you in the team. I don't give a shit how we do it. Um, and I created a role. I'll give you a quick example. Like, I was trying to, and I actually invested in this one friend of mine out of Seattle. He had shut down his company and raised a bunch of money. It didn't work out, shut down his company. And then we were just shooting the shit and having beers. And he was like, dude, I want to go back to the UK. And, his wife is from the UK. I'm just going to go hang out there. I want to retire, not retire there, but I want to just go live the rest of my life. He's a young guy. He's like, 27, 28, 30, early 30s, right? I said, like, dude, why don't you just go run my UK business? We set up an office. You go help us expand into the UK. So it's a soft landing spot for you. I know you really well. So you want to do, and so, he was like, oh, that's a great idea. Right. And I just needed him in the company. Right. So, like, Sim went out, then he went out to the UK and he built out like a $4 million business in the UK for us right now. Right. So, again, like, I am super gravitated towards people who are really accomplished, whether whether they failed in a company or not. That's going to be irrelevant because I know them really well, and so I want to get them into the team, right? I know if they're in the team, they'll get the team better. That's it, right? So, and sometimes it's opportunistic. Like, I thought I was going to hire him as a CRO for the US, but no, he wanted to go to the UK. Fine, I don't care. He's part of the company. He's going to do a really good job. So I hired him that way. So that's a good example of how I kind of get cobbled everybody together.
I like it. It's a phenomenal example. I love the stories behind it because I think it really resonates and kind of brings things together in the real world. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, the a few questions around, this interim period, from,
Yeah,
stepping away from Question Pro and then coming back
yeah.
and, having a few startups in there that you went through and had some failures in. So I'm curious, going through that process, what are some of the like top lessons coming out of, having a few businesses that didn't work out? What are some of the top lessons that came out of that experience for you?
I mean, I think I'd look back and say, like, I pulled the plug on ideas too early. That has
Hmm.
been, like, it's not working out because, with this one deal that we were really anchoring on didn't come through, and then and I was like, it's not going to work out. Let's get out of here, right? So let's kind of do the next one, right? So I would say, like, that was in hindsight, at the time. Obviously, I thought that was the right thing to do, clearly, right? So, but in hindsight, like, I could have kind of made a couple of those work if I just, and like, like, you got to grind it out, right? So you got to grind it out and grind it out. And, that's my fundamental belief. You grind it out and eventually something really, like, opportunity does knock, and you get the right client in the right way. And, it will work. So that was one of the things that I was like, I wish in hindsight I was have kind of, pushed it through. The other thing that I was doing at the time was I was kind of investing in other companies, right? I just had this fancy idea that, like, look, let me be in the board of a bunch of companies and give them advice, really, right? And I realized I'm not that kind of guy. It's like, this is fucking stupid, right? I mean, I just don't like giving advice. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. I'm like that again. You have to go through the process to realize who you are. I mean, as much as you think you know who you are, you know who you're not. Also. And then I got super frustrated with myself. Like, man, I don't want to, I don't want to just be the guy who gives advice. I want to be the guy who actually, takes a wrench and actually gets shit done. And that gives me kind of, honestly, that gives me personal stuff. Forget about the money and all that shit, right? It's, we wake up and I feel accomplished. It's like a consulting. A lot of, consulting is another example. Like consulting, you can do a lot, make a ton of money in consulting, but nothing is yours. You don't own anything. I mean,
Hmm.
if it works, the client takes the benefit. If it doesn't, you take the shit and move on. But they pay you a ton of money, right? I mean, yeah, you're getting paid a ton of money to do that. And the same thing with, like, advisory services,
Hmm.
anything, or in the board and all that stuff. Like, if it works out, they're gonna take the benefit. If it doesn't, you get bad advice. But anyway, I don't like giving advice. Anyway, I don't like taking advice. I don't like giving advice. I like, all right, fine. That's after a couple of years, I realized that that's just not for me. Um, and then meanwhile, I was doing a couple of startups, and then I realized, like, this is, and I need to kind of really sink my teeth into something and just go at it. And then that's when I thought, I came back to Question Pro.
I love that. I love just the clarity on kind of your own journey and your own perspective on what works for you more so than the business just didn't work or anything else like that. I think that's really cool. So what's upcoming for you as you look forward to the next 3 to 5 years? What are you most excited about? How do you see things shifting or changing for you as in your role? But where's life or business going for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, look. First of all, like, we're in a pretty healthy spot right now. We are profitable. We're not one of those companies that are unprofitable. We've not raised a ton of money. We've not raised any money, for that matter. And we have a lot of options, really. For optionality, from a, pure, taking the tech jargon, we have a great optionality on one side. And going to your question, where do we see? I want to grow this from 30 million bucks to 100 million bucks, right? And that's, it's not an easy problem. It's a tough one. And that's why we do it, right? It's not easy, and I've never done it. That doesn't stop me from doing it, clearly. So, and yeah, I'm probably going to make a bunch of mistakes, in this kind of, like, in this kind of process. And I'll learn. I mean, and again, I look at all these things as new, new initiatives, new experiences, really, right? So I'm very excited about, hopefully doing the right thing to get us there. And you know what? Even if I do the wrong thing, who gives a shit? It's all right. It's all right. I mean, really, like, I don't take life that seriously. Like, and again, I'm super excited because the team that we put together also believes in the mission. Like, if all of us didn't believe in the mission, then it's not that I'm dragging a bunch of guys in. They're like, no, they're all part of the mission. They're all guys who've been there, done that. They're like, yeah, this is the right thing to do, and I have a great time working with these guys. Honestly, I really do. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I'm energized, and I love working with these guys. And hopefully, they like working with me. But just ask them. But so, and that has been a to me, like that's and I can say what I want to do and I can do what I was. It's just like I'm a big believer in like I want to do what I want to do, right? And so that has been that's just personal, like deeply personally inside me. And that's why most entrepreneurs they do it for the money, but really they do it for the freedom too, realistically,
Hmm.
right? And the money happens to be like okay, kind of a side benefit. A great side benefit, but so to me at least that's how I think about it. So next 3 5 years, if I can get it to $100 million, yeah, great. Then I'll sell it for obviously north of that, but so I mean, it'll be a good exit for all of us. But again, it's a check mark, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not going to change materially. Kind of frankly, I don't think at least it's going to change materially what I do, what I don't want to do. But so that's what drives me. That's what motivates me. I'm excited about it, and that's what I'm doing every day.
I love it. I am excited to watch that journey as you continue on it over the next few years. Well, I know we've covered a tremendous amount of ground and talked about a number of topics, and I'm certain we could sit here for another like 3 hours and just chat about stuff. But I do want to be respectful of time. We've got a few kind of rapid fire questions. I'd love to kind of bring out for the audience, get some wisdom nuggets to get out there for everyone. So when the first one I've got for you here, when you look at your journey kind of through life so far, through business, through life, through kind of everything in general, what would you say for you has been your key to success?
Transparency. Like I think everybody in the company knows where I stand. I don't hold back. I say what I feel, and that's it. Sometimes it's harsh, but they know that they'll get a pretty straight answer from me. So whether they like it or not, it is what it is, and it does help people kind of be together also. So I would say transparency has been a key element.
Excellent. How about advice? If you could give just one piece of advice, and you can only give one piece of advice for other entrepreneurs out there, which one would you want to leave them with?
Oh, grit. I would say grit is the like don't give up. Like you feel like it's dog shit, but most people give up, and that's why they kind of give up too early, right? That's it. And if you grind it out, it's gonna work out. That's it.
I love it. Book recommendations, either one that pops into your head, or I always like to frame it up. It's easier. Like, what's one book that you are either currently reading or read most recently, or listen to, or you can put a podcast out there if that's more your speed.
No, I think Ray Dalio's, it's a pretty heavy book, but it actually has a lot of depth to it. He wrote a book called Principles. So it's been one of those. I mean, I've read a lot of books, but that's been the one book that kind of always stands up to me. It's a pretty heavy book, but you can read a lighter version of it. I think there's a condensed version also of it. But either way, like I think that's one of the books that I kind of like. It's got enough depth to it. Cumulatively across a lot of different things, from finance to personal to everything else. So I really like that.
That's an excellent recommendation. I don't think that one's come up yet in any of my conversations, so I'm excited to add that
Okay.
one back to the list. So before we get to kind of my final question of the day, I always like to end these on. For those that are listening to this that want to, keep up with the amazing things that y'all are doing, this journey that you're on, that want to connect with you or learn more information, where can we advise them to go for more connection and more
Uh,
information here?
So QuestionPro is the company, so questionpro.com. And then I'm super active on LinkedIn, so just look me up on LinkedIn. My first name and last name, Vivek Bhaskaran. Just look me up on LinkedIn. I engage with almost everybody on LinkedIn, so that's fine. I'm not on X, Twitter, slash, all that other stuff. And I focus on LinkedIn, and that's kind of that has enough drama going on anyway. So and it's so that's why, yeah. So LinkedIn for kind of personally, and then obviously for the company it's questionpro.com.
Excellent. Well, I will put both of those links in the video description below. So if you're watching this, later on, make sure you pause the video or stop at the end of it here. Click both links, go check it all out. And I've got to encourage you, especially with this Business Spotlight series, it's amazing to connect entrepreneurs. So send Vivek a message here. Say, hey, saw you on the Business Spotlight. Great conversation. Just wanted to say hi. Make sure that you reach out and say hi there. So as we wrap up, I always like to end on this final question, which is simply, what is most inspiring to you today?
I've been like recently thinking about the notion of trust, really, right? So how trust is the kind of fundamental ingredient in a lot of different vectors, right? Um, trust in the sense of business. Obviously, if you're trying to raise money, why do people put money into other entrepreneurs, because there's a fundamental element of trust in there, right? Between that, why do employees work, and why do you want to work with somebody? Why do customers even buy products from you, right? And I think that's kind of the trust element is kind of like a good abstract element to kind of really think about, right? Like, can you, do I trust you? And there are different elements of how you make that happen, right? And that's the kind of the mechanics of it. Especially in the context of sales, a lot of people go into sales that say, "Yeah, I know I'm a great sales guy because then I can talk a lot, or I can position things correctly, blah blah blah." But it's really, at the end of the day, it comes down to trust. In my mind, at least, it's my principal belief is that, like, people buy stuff because they trust you, right? And how do you make that trust happen? There are hundreds of ways, right? Hundreds of ways. You meet people, you don't meet people, you meet on Zoom, you don't meet on Zoom. And so yeah, so that's kind of like, to me, like, I've been thinking about kind of trust as a core construct, right? And and then different circumstances of how do you kind of earn it? How do you validate it? How do you go through the process? So that's been something, has been in the back of my mind, front of my mind, really, in terms of how, and that goes into kind of what you do, really, to make some things happen. So that's my thought.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Vivek, I want to say thank you again for taking the time to be here to share some journey. As I mentioned, I'm certain we could sit here and really dive in for another like hour or so, but need to be respectful of the time that we have. So thank you so much. This has been a genuine pleasure, and just excited to have this conversation with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.